good. The only thing that was better in my 20s than in my 30s are my tits. Do you know what I mean?
You know what? I'm in the itty bitty titty committee, so
I really.
So I'm actually happy with the growth of my boobs, because when I was in my 20s, I was like, oh, so this is it. This is all I'm getting. But I know what you mean, because gravity comes for us all.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Except for the itty bitty titty committee, it has not. It doesn't come for us. But
no. In the end, you guys win.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Slightly Off Plan podcast. I'm Jillian, and today I'm joined by Bas, a brilliant stand-up comedian from Southeast London. We dive into how comedy can heal through tough times, the weight of family expectations, and the challenges of being a brown woman in comedy. Enjoy!
Yay! Hi!
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me on the podcast.
So, Bas, we met at a comedy night.
Mm-hmm.
Do the Right Scene.
Yeah.
Shout out to Do the Right Scene. And you were on stage. You were doing your 10-minute stand-up, and first of all, it was hilarious. Like, I was laughing the entire time. I was like, this is amazing. And then at one point, you mentioned being 36.
Yeah.
And you had already mentioned, like, that you weren't married, that you didn't have kids. And it was around the beginning of me, like, recruiting for my podcast. And I was like, I got to get her on the podcast.
Oh,
it's
amazing.
great. So,
yeah.
It's been really fun having comedians on the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. Let's make it funny, I guess. So let's talk about comedy.
Okay.
Because I'm kind of new to comedy-ish.
Yeah.
I started here. I only started in London, and that was only 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm still kind of new to the scene. So I love hearing people's comedy stories because, like, before this, I was just like I was a teacher. I was in software engineering, like no creative stuff, no arts or anything like that. And so I'm very interested in how people got to where they are. So tell me about your comedic career.
Okay, well, I have quite a long history with comedy, actually.
Okay.
So I kind of got involved in the scene like maybe sort of 15 years ago.
Oh wow.
So there are a lot of stand-ups that are around now who were my contemporaries back then.
Oh.
So like Dane Baptiste and Tez Elias and Jamali Maddox.
Mm-hmm.
They're all people that I came up with back then.
Wow, yeah.
But it was one of those things where I was doing comedy for all the wrong reasons.
Okay.
So I had like one good set and that was it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so I kind of fell out of love with it because I went into it for the wrong reasons, and I wasn't really developing as a comedian. And then I went into writing for a bunch of years, like maybe sort of 5 to 7, and then took time off in between, that kind of thing. And then 2018, I got back into comedy just in time for a delicious pandemic.
Yeah.
Wonderful pandemic.
That's the best time.
It's the best time
to get into stand-up
exactly.
comedy.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so I kind of see this as like my third foray into comedy because although I was able to pick up some of the momentum from 2018, like you end up losing so much of it. Like people that remembered you from back then have kind of forgotten you however many years on. And also I do think that during the pandemic, because of people not being able to go out to stages and things like that, I think that was kind of where a big kick in the rise of kind of online comedians came from. And well, because people were making content, right? People were bored in their houses, in their homes, and so they were kind of recording all kinds of content, and some of it happened to be funny, and some of it were comedians, already standing comedians, just doing more content, long form sketch, whatever. But then it also gave birth to kind of this new form of comedian now, which is somebody who did videos online and they were quite funny, and then from that they went on to do stand-up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that. Because I wasn't in the comedy scene at the time.
Yeah.
So for me, I was just like, oh, great. Now there's funny shit online. that I get to watch now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't even think of how it just like birthed like a new realm of comedians.
Yeah.
So you started with stand up.
Yeah.
And how would you say now, like post pandemic, how would you say now is like the landscape, the comedy landscape? Like did you follow what was happening, or were you just kind of like, I know what I like, I feel comfortable in like the stand up lane?
Yeah. I one of the biggest bits of feedback that everybody gives me is, you need to go on Instagram, you need to go on TikTok, you need to do all those things that everyone's doing now.
Yeah.
And I'm just flat out refusing to do it.
Yeah.
But it's to my own detriment. The only person that's hurting is me. The only person whose career is stalling is mine. Because I refuse to be on those platforms.
You know, it's so funny, because obviously I did a little bit of research before you getting here. And I did notice, I was like, oh, she's really not out there, which is fine. Like, you can come up. Yeah. But you're right. Yeah. The thing is content. Yeah. That's all I'm doing. Yeah. All I'm doing is like, is the podcast, taking chunks out of this, making them sound bites, TikTok. Have you been on TikTok?
I reluctantly have seen videos on TikTok.
It is like, I was such a millennial about it. I was like, I'll do TikTok. TikTok is for Gen Z. and then when I started getting into the podcast, and I was like, a lot of the marketing was like, you got to be everywhere. Yeah. And I refuse to do Facebook. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know about you, but I feel like millennials, we had our time with Facebook. Mm-hmm. We invented Facebook, and then we gave it to the boomers, and then we just got the fuck out of it.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so I'm just like, I can't go back. A lot of people do recommend it, but I'm just like, I'll do Instagram, I'll do TikTok, I'll do YouTube. That's all I can handle. Mm-hmm. So why don't you want to do the socials?
Well, it's largely because, like, so it's vanity. It's purely vanity. It's purely vanity because I don't like how I look on camera. Oh. I don't like how I look on camera because I was
I'm so sorry that I'm recording
this. I know that you are recording this. You swine. But I was talking to another comedian friend of mine, and we were dancing around this issue, right? He's really good. Mm-hmm. And I was saying to him, you need to get your content online. And I said, like, I'm not preaching to you, because I don't do it either, but you absolutely need to be getting your content online, because it would be great for people to see who you are, who you are and what you're doing. And we danced around the issue for ages, and eventually we came back to, we don't look like how we did when we were 25. But in our minds we do. Yeah. And then we walk past like a shop with reflective surfaces, and we go, fuck, that's what I look like now. Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing, is that you're going to a gig and you look in the mirror and you go, oh, yeah, I look all right. Yeah. And then you watch the recording back of yourself and you're just like a cup of pudding with a microphone.
I know what you mean. I do. I hate it. Like, sometimes, I don't know what it is about like the mirror where I'm just like, oh, okay. Yeah. Looking fly. And then, someone will take a picture or, a recording or whatever, a little video. And I'm just like, oh, is that what my face does? Yeah. Yeah. But I feel like millennials obviously I don't know you when you were 25, but I feel like millennials are aging really well compared to Gen Z.
I think we age well. Yeah. But that's our genetics. Yeah. Very specifically our genetics.
That's true.
That's true.
That's true.
But that's it though. There are people who I think like just embrace it. Yeah. And in fact, I spoke to another comedian friend of mine who said that she does little vlogs almost every day, and she said that she hated seeing herself on video, mm-hmm. but she said you get over it really quickly. You actually just need to push through and do it and get it done, and then you're actually fine. Yeah. And I just need to do that. I just need to feel okay enough to do some content, and then get it out there. But also, I'm quite brassy and no nonsense. I'm like a council estate girl from Southeast London. Like, I don't take any shit. But I also know that if someone was to say something shitty to me online, mm-hmm. I do not take the high road. I do not Michelle Obama this. Yeah. I'm not about that.
You're not. No. She's no longer about it either.
No, she's not.
I don't know if you've seen any of her stuff over the last few months. Now she's just like, fuck what I said.
Exactly.
Fuck what I said.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. Yeah, exactly. So I'm like new age Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
So I get right down into the shit with the pigs.
Yeah.
And eventually no one can tell the difference. So that's the thing. That's the other thing as well. Like I try and keep away from social media. Like you mentioned Facebook. I'm on Facebook, but it's interesting because most of the people that run the gigs in and around London and around the country are typically boomers.
Yeah, interesting.
So that's it. It's
so you gotta be on Facebook.
You've got to be on Facebook because that's for a lot of them that'll be their preferred medium. That's where they put all the forms up for you to do applications. Really? It's what they'll talk about, last minute dropouts, all that kind of stuff. Like that's the place to be really if you're a stand-up comedian looking for gigs and things like that.
Yeah. No, the I find this so interesting because the stand-up, because I'm all improv.
Yeah.
And the stand-up landscape is so different.
Yeah.
And before I got into comedy or, anything creative, when I first got into the scene, like I didn't know anything. I didn't know how improv worked and stand-up. I just kind of thought everyone did everything.
Yeah.
Which, like, now that I'm in it, I'm like, oh, that was stupid. Because I would be at gigs. So I would be at like Comediation shows. Shout out to Comediations, my team. And we do a very similar format to Do the Right Scene, where we have two Asian stand-ups specifically for Comediations. And I would talk, I would be in the back, I would be talking to the stand-ups, and they would be like, oh my God, I could never do improv. And I remember the first time I heard that, which was very close to the beginning of me being an improv. And I remember being like, but you do stand-up. Mm-hmm. Surely improv is like nothing to you. And now I see how different the two are.
Yeah. So different. Like,
because now I know that stand-up is terrifying. Like I haven't tried it yet, but I'm just like, the idea is like terrifying.
Yeah. I think the opposite is true for stand-ups. So it's like that's one of the reasons why I want to get into improv more, because I know that that's a muscle that I need to train and get better at.
Yeah.
Because it's a completely different skill set. It's a completely different craft.
Yeah.
And so I've been with my boyfriend for like 3 years, and I've never been angry with him once. Well, I was angry with him once. And that was because we were at a gig, and at the end of the gig, you do an improv exercise. And I said to him, I need you to leave when this happens. So you can come to the gig, but I want you to sit downstairs and have a drink for like 10, 15 minutes while the improv happens upstairs. And I didn't explain to him why. But I also he has quite a hard kind of cringe reflex. Where like, do you know what I mean? So like, he can't stand things like musicals. Like he finds it embarrassing. Like, do you know what I mean? So I think I suppose I assumed he got it. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's like, it's like working out in front of your boyfriend.
Yeah.
When you're not in the shape that you're happy with.
Yeah.
It's horrible. And it felt so exposing. And I was doing my thing, and obviously the lights were down, and my boyfriend wears glasses and like bright white, like crisp trainers. And so I was doing my thing, looked out in the crowd, and just saw these crisp white trainers and the reflection off these glasses. And I was like, oh my God, he's in the crowd. And I basically shut down in the middle of an improv.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was ridiculous. And I was furious with him.
Yeah.
I mean, I was furious with him for like 10 minutes. And I explained why, and he was like, oh, okay, I get it. You know? But it's such a different.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
My best friend, who's one of the funniest people that I know, when I first got into improv, and I mean, I was so annoying. Like, when you discover something for the first time, and then I'm the type of person, when I discover something for the first time, I tell everyone. Mm-hmm. I'm like, guys, I discovered improv. Like, and my friends back home, my cousins back home were like, okay. But my best friend in particular, he's, like I said, the funniest person I know. And I was like, I need you to try improv because I think he'd be really good at it. And he went, I sent him to a class in New York. He went and he hated it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, fine. Watch me do improv. And you know how improv is. Like, it's either really good or the worst thing you've ever seen in your life. Like, bad improv is the worst. It's like your boyfriend would die. Like, just fall over. And Adrian, my best friend, is the same way. And so we went to this place in New York, And it was like like a jam session. I just signed up. This is my first time doing improv in New York because my entire improv career is like in the UK. So I'm a little nervous. I'm like, oh, I'm good here. I'm funny in London. Like, am I funny in New York?
Right.
And it just ended up being one of those nights where I just was not funny. And I had like no good ideas, like came on stage, did something cringy and then ran off stage. Like it was awful. And the entire time I'm just like, Adrian is probably so upset with me right now. Not because I did bad, but because he's the same as your boyfriend where he can't watch cringy things because he like feels it. And yeah, Adrian won't come with me to improv things anymore.
Was it different though? Did it feel and operate differently being in New York and being in London?
It did, but I don't know why.
Huh.
I don't know. Like, I couldn't tell what it was that felt different other than I was improvising with a bunch of Americans as opposed to improvising with like English people. But I mean, it could have been a lot of things. This also was quite early. Like, I think this was like maybe a year and a half into me doing improv. So like I was like good at it and comfortable, but not like, not like I've been doing this for like years kind of thing. I think I was a bit nervous because like it is like New York, like the improv in New York is top tier.
Yeah.
So I think I was a little nervous about that. And then I had someone in the audience that I knew exactly like what you're saying, like your improv is dependent on who's in the audience. So yeah, that's not a great answer, but that is the answer. It is different, but I couldn't like quite pinpoint it.
I think you've articulated it from everything you've just said there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, like it's like the audience is different. Also, like what people are after. Like, although I think New York and London have so many similarities, including senses of humor, I do still think there is an inherent difference.
Yeah.
Like there are jokes and things that I could poke fun at here that I wouldn't be able to poke fun at in the US, or particularly in New York, or particularly in Chicago, depending on what city you're in.
Interesting.
So I do think that the like satire and certain, for example, certain things I think just do better in certain cities. I think.
Have you done stand up in the US?
No, I wasn't allowed to.
What do you mean allowed to?
And it sounds like I've been banned.
Yeah.
My agent said that I couldn't because of the employment laws and things out there.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was like, but I'm doing it for free, so there shouldn't be any employment law attached to it. Apparently, it's just there's all kinds of things where like if you were seen to be performing as a pro comedian, that there'd be something on that. I'm not entirely sure. I was just told that I couldn't do it for those kind of employment reasons.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder how people do it then. Like there must be like bigger comics like going around. But I feel like a lot of US comics come here.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm erring on the side of that not being potentially that not being entirely correct.
Okay. There's some like fine print.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think you can say here that you couldn't say in New York?
Like so for example, I have a 9/11 joke, which wouldn't do well in New York. It's quite a major one, I think.
I watched that 9/11 joke. I think the right audience would find it funny.
Yes.
But it's a tough one.
It's a tough one.
It's a tough one because do you know Pete Davidson?
Yeah.
His
dad died.
His dad died in 9/11 and he has some horrendous 9/11 jokes.
Yeah.
But he can say them.
Yeah.
And obviously people feel differently, depending on your relationship to 9/11.
Yeah.
Obviously, as a New Yorker, like, my relationship is very strong to 9/11.
Sure.
So it's one of those things where, like, yeah, I don't like to joke about it. But when it's a Pete Davidson joke, or, like, when it's, like, someone connected to it in a way, like, you're connected to it. I don't know if this is going to sound bad, but like you're connected to 9/11 through being Muslim.
Yeah, of course.
You know?
100%. And
Yeah.
and I think that's it, you know, is the yeah, I mean, I remember, it's going to sound terrible, but I remember when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
I was in secondary school, so just for some context, we moved into Eltham in Southeast London in the 90s. And in the 90s, in the early 90s, I think 1992, 1993, there was a really famous racist murder that happened in Eltham.
Mm.
And it was the murder of Stephen Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been a massive, it had like a seismic shift in this country, because it was the first time that the family or the victim would not let it go. Because what happened was the police were basically doing a half-assed job. And it was off the back of that murder that a whole inquiry was made, and they found the Met Police to be institutionally racist. Prior to that, it'd all been sort of hearsay. It'd been like, oh, a brown kid killed over there and no one's been arrested, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a black kid over here, whatever. And it just so happened to be that, you know, his particularly his mum, I believe, maybe even exclusively his mum, Doreen Lawrence, was the person who just was continually campaigning for this investigation of her son.
Yeah.
So we grew up there in the 90s.
Yeah. Fuck.
And it was really tough living there. We were the only Asian family. And then 9/11 happened. And my first thought was, things were about to get really fucking worse. And it was really hard growing up for the, you know, I'd say probably the next sort of, you know, certainly the next couple of years. But you know, there is sort of that residual, even when the dust has settled a little bit. And obviously, you know, London in no way was affected the way that New Yorkers were, but I still think that kind of that fear percolates and it gets around the globe, you know, that this is what Muslims do and this is how, you know, you need to be careful about them because they're covert and they're sneaky and all the rest of it. So that, and to be honest, like, I would hate to think that anyone listened to that 9/11 joke and thought that what I was making fun of was 9/11. Actually, what I'm making fun of is the anxiety of being a brown and Asian person in the context of 9/11.
Yeah.
Because that was very much my reality at the time that 9/11 happened, was that these things, you know, you can't take off your skin color, you can't take off your facial features.
Yeah.
And nor would I want to.
Yeah.
But even if I wanted to, I didn't have that option. I couldn't covertly be a Muslim. It was obvious I was Muslim.
Yeah.
But even with that context, I think there are still a lot of people that will kind of have a really hard stop on, we just don't talk about 9/11. Like 9/11 and comedy do not interlink. There's no crossover there.
Yeah.
Before, so I was really excited. We do all the touristy things. We like to saw Times Square, Empire State Building, and my boyfriend thought that it'd be a really good idea if we visit the 9/11 museum. And he thought that the best date for us to visit the 9/11 museum was on 9/11. So here I am in New York on 9/11 as a Muslim foreigner, right? And I realised this is the day that I have to look the least Muslim I've ever looked, right? So this was the outfit that I had. Stripper heels, mini skirt, topless. You know what I mean? Like a handbag in one hand, beer in the other. Sucking my boyfriend off his
To bring it back to Pete Davidson, I do kind of love him.
Yeah.
He has a joke that came out a little bit more recently. It's about to get dark.
It's all good. I'm all about the dark.
So he was on Saturday. He was hosting Saturday Night Live. I think like a few days after October 7th. And he comes on stage and he's like, I bet you think like, who do I want to hear from now? Like Pete Davidson. And he's like, actually, like, I'm the perfect person to hear from because like I'm connected to, you know, this story in this way. Basically what he was saying is you know, he had gone through one of the most horrific things that you could go through ever, you know, losing your father in this like horrific, you know, tragedy. And he was like, the only way I got out was comedy. And I mean, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're taking this, like, this thing that happened to you in a very personal way that, like, you know, you can't take your skin off. You can't hide. Like, you just have to go out into the world and hope that you're not going to encounter someone fucking racist.
Yeah.
On a bad day. And you turned it into comedy. You turned it into something that's like, actually, I'm just gonna claim this.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what comedy is, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, what else can you do?
Yeah.
You know, you can sit there and cry about it, or you can turn it into art.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But and I think that's it. Like Pete Davidson, obviously, he has that personal connection, and so you kind of get chips to be able to work with that subject matter. And it's a similar sort of thing with anything really. Like my ability to be able to talk about brown people and Muslims and joke about them and all that sort of stuff. Like I can do that because I have those chips. But I mean, I think unless you're kind of just making lazy stereotype jokes, which I don't think are particularly helpful.
No.
You know, I would like to think that I try to address those, maybe some of those taboos or some of those stereotypes, because I'm trying to challenge them. Like I'm trying to make a joke about the fact that some people might be thinking that, or working with the discomfort that people have around those things, because because I think discomfort is funny, but also I think people like to have discomfort and then relief and go, oh, maybe I don't need to be that tense about this thing, you know. With the relief kind of you know, it allows you to think a little bit more freely about why was I so tense about that thing, you know.
So do you think that comes out in your stand-up a lot? Like your heritage, like making those uncomfortable jokes?
Yeah.
Is that a topic that you like to address?
Tons.
Yeah.
Tons. Yeah. So I just did my show at the Fringe.
Yes.
I just did my show at the Fringe, and it's like a 40 to 45 minute show.
Okay.
And it's large. It's called Keep It Dark. And it's exactly.
Nice.
Exactly, but it's like obviously it's a multi-layered meaning of like the name of the show. But one of the biggest things is about that. It's about secrets, and it's the fact that, like, particularly, I don't know if you found this so much, but like from really conservative like Muslim parents, you end up having to lie a whole lot to them, or like withholding a lot. Do you find the same thing?
Yeah. Yeah, like growing up, like I couldn't tell my parents everything.
Right.
Yeah, I couldn't actually tell them most things.
Yeah.
They're going to watch this. But that's what happens. I wouldn't say that my parents are like super conservative, but they are immigrant parents.
Yeah.
And, you know, my mom is the Asian one, but they are Asian parents. And yeah, you can't be 100% the, you know, American in my case, English in your case. Like, you just can't be fully that version in front of them, because that it's not allowed.
No. Yeah, because they still want you to be their heritage and their culture.
Yeah.
But with all the added benefits of being in a Western country. And it doesn't really work like that.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, expand on that.
Well, because I think that's what it is there's a really famous Bollywood film, which incidentally I tried to show to my boyfriend and he hated it.
What ethnicity is he?
He's white. I mean, the whitest of the white. I mean, he's wonderful and I love him more than anyone else. He's just the most, genuinely the most incredible human being I've ever met. But he is white. He's white.
Sometimes you just gotta let them know.
Exactly.
Just
no, he knows.
Like love you, but white.
Yes. Do you know what though? So he's got dark hair, right? And like when he tans, he goes like really brown, right? But he grew up in an area, so he lived he lives kind of like Middlesbrough way, like way up north.
Okay.
Grew up there. And in a place that is so ethnically undiverse that one of the bonding points that we had is that we both grew up being called.
Oh my gosh.
That's it.
Oh my gosh.
Like, that's how ethnically undiverse it is. He was considered a minority
Oh my god.
for having dark hair.
What ethnicity is he? Like,
He's white.
But like, is he like Greek or
No,
Italian?
like Scottish and Irish.
How does he tan?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
We don't know this either. Right? So his mum did a genealogy thing, like 50% Scottish, part Irish, the rest English, right?
Yeah.
So on his dad's side, we're not aware of, but he was like, on his dad's side, his dad's side are like ginger and blonde and all that sort of thing. So I introduced my boyfriend to my mum this year.
That's a big step.
It was a big step.
That's a big step.
Big step.
Yeah.
And like there was, my mum asked him about it. She was like, "Whereabouts are you from? Like what heritage do you have?" And the hope, that glimmer of hope in my mum's eye when my boyfriend was like, "Well, we think that there might be some Indian heritage somewhere." She was holding on to that for dear life.
What?
Exactly.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so cute. Are your parents okay with the fact that he's white?
So only my mum knows. My dad doesn't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would it be a thing?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Big time. It'd be a big thing.
Even at this age?
Yeah.
Wow. Because I feel like with my parents, I feel like they've chilled out.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've just kind of been like, okay, you're gonna do you. Yeah, you're moving to London, sure. Like
Yeah.
yeah, you're quitting your job to start a podcast, sure. Whereas like, you know, when I was in my 20s, when I was a teenager, you know, it was very much like, no, like, what are you doing? Stop. Like, go to school.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
So yeah, I feel like I've like stopped surprising them. I feel like they're just kind of like, yeah, okay. But I feel like that kind of came with age. I'm also the younger one, so my sister dealt with a lot of the stuff. She's gonna be really happy that Ati. I call her, that's older sister in Tagalog.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she dealt with a lot of the stuff, and I still dealt with stuff too, but I did get a watered down version. And then after a while, I honestly, once I moved here is when they were just kind of like, okay, like, just do you.
Yeah. So is it just you and your sister?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
right. Okay.
Yeah. But she's married. She's a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
She owns a home. Like, she's like, you know, like one of us had to be good.
Yeah.
And then I mean, that is the stereotype, isn't it? Like the older kid is always the one that like gets the good grades and like, you know, is like on the straight path and blah. And then the younger one is just like, wah! And that is fully us.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's good.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
they got one good one.
Yeah. And often that's enough. Yeah. At least one of them isn't a screw up. The thing is, I'm one of 7. So they had like 7 chances to get it right.
Yeah.
I feel like they've got it right maybe a few times. Like for a lot of us, a lot of us haven't really. I mean, there's only one doctor in the family.
Okay.
There's only one doctor, but there is a chemical engineer in the family. There's also a teacher in the family.
Okay.
So they're not doing bad. They're not doing bad.
Yeah.
But in terms of
where are you on the 7?
Oh, I'm the youngest.
Oh, you're the youngest.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, youngest. Let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very different. I feel like youngest of 2 versus youngest of 7 is very different.
Yeah. Well, like, you remember how you were saying, like, by the time it got down to you, it wasn't, the pressure wasn't quite so bad.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, by the time it gets down to me, like, it's so diluted. You know, like those cheap pens that you get from the pound shop. And like at the beginning, when you're colouring in with it, it's like quite bold and quite strong.
Yeah.
And by the time you've got to the end of like the flower that you're colouring in, it's like barely any colour.
Yeah.
I'm like that. There's like that's how much pressure was on me to do anything notable.
That's why you're a stand-up.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Did your siblings have they kind of are they on path? Like, so did they get married at the right age? And oh no.
No.
Oh, wow.
The three youngest are yet to be married.
Okay.
Three youngest are yet to be married. But my sister and my brother, my sister got married quite young, in the early 20s. She got married and started having kids and things like that. My eldest brother, thing is, boys can hold off longer. Boys are allowed to hold off longer. So
true.
It's just because, like, you know, we get old and saggy and unpleasant earlier, don't we? As women.
The biological clock.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if we were to get pregnant now, we'd be considered a geriatric pregnancy.
Really?
From last year, from 35.
That's so rude.
Isn't that so rude? Because I do want to have kids at some point, but like not yet.
No.
Which is insane because I'm 36. But like, but yeah, so like, I'm just geriatric until I have kids.
Yeah.
If I can have them, I don't even know.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I know. A bunch of my friends had kids when they were around sort of 37, 38.
Right. Yeah. I feel like
you've got time.
I feel like I have time.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Not a lot, but but yeah, I feel like I have time. Do you want kids?
No.
Okay, so you're
absolutely not.
Do your parents know?
My mum does.
Okay.
She's begrudgingly accepted that.
Oh, okay.
She's begrudgingly accepted that.
Yeah.
Because everyone else, other than the three unmarried ones, everyone else has got kids.
Okay.
I think between everybody, I think there's like 12 nieces and nephews.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh. That's so fun. What a big family.
Yeah.
Your pause after I said fun, you were like, sure.
Exactly.
I imagine it's a lot.
It's a lot.
How old is your oldest nephew?
He turned 21 this year.
Jesus. Sorry. Yeah. That's like... Because in my head, nieces and nephews are like 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
21.
21.
That's a man.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's a whole big human.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do any of your family members, nieces, nephews, anyone, do any of them go to see your stand-up?
None.
Okay. Is that on purpose?
Yes. I mean, the thing is, it was really interesting, actually. I had a conversation with a few other stand-ups. Do you know Fuck It Up comedy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was talking to some of the ladies there, and we were talking about the concern and the worry about your parents or your family finding out what you do, but then also the content.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So, and this is the thing, right? Is that there's so much. My comedy is purposefully really provocative.
Yeah.
Because there are all, like, as when you come on stage, there's an expectation of you as a woman, as a female comedian.
Yeah.
There's an expectation of you as a brown comedian. There's an expectation of you as a Muslim comedian, and you only have so much time on stage. You don't have loads of time to debunk all of those things.
Yeah.
So the thing that I come out with initially is being really crass and really brash and really blue, and making people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because I kind of go, I need to immediately cleanse the palate here, because everybody's come on with expectations of what they think I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
So I can absolutely justify my material to me and to anyone else that would be interested in hearing my justification.
Yeah.
But for everyone else, in my family, I'd be like, she's talking about cock on stage. That would be it. That would be it.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear my thesis as to why I'm doing that, as to why that's my opening joke, as to why I'm candid about the expectations of a Muslim, the expectations of a Muslim woman, and the expectations of a brown woman to be, sort of reserved and demure, and that's not, like, why is there a cookie cutter version of that when we don't? Look, everyone has stereotypes to have to work with, but it's like, in a way, it's like dehumanizing to kind of go, you're not allowed to talk about you're not allowed to talk about sex. You're not allowed to talk about pleasure. You're not allowed to talk about any of those things because a woman's not supposed to enjoy it, and a Muslim woman's not supposed to do it, and all that sort of stuff. So although I think I come at it and I talk about those things because I think it's really important.
Yeah.
They're just going to hear cock.
You're like, it was a 45-minute set.
Exactly.
That's the only thing you heard.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is the only thing they'll hear.
Yeah.
That is the only thing they'll hear
Yeah,
is she's on stage being dirty and being filthy and talking about dirty things.
Yeah.
It won't be what is the point of that. And even if they don't understand it, there won't be any line of questioning.
Yeah.
It will be she's on stage saying naughty things.
Yeah.
Things, and that's it.
I am inspired by the amount of freedom that you have because they don't see your stuff.
Yeah.
Because it does sound like a lot of, it sounds like because your family is not watching you at all, you have this freedom to completely be yourself, which is a freedom that I feel like I don't quite have.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you mean with improv or do you just mean on the podcast?
On the podcast, and then also what I want to be doing in comedy. So, because improv is just silly, right? And it's fun. And I would love for, my parents or cousins or whatever. I actually, one of my cousins was in Edinburgh, and came to one of my shows, and he was the first of my family to like kind of see me on stage. And it was a good night.
Yes, I'm glad.
Goodness, thank goodness. I was like, see, I am funny. But I want to branch out of improv. I have like little bits of stand up that I write, and I have TV shows, and one of them is going to be a dark comedy, and it's not going to be something that my parents are going to like at all. And I'm kind of saving that for like if let's say I make it and let's say everything works out, then I'll be like, oh, okay, here's a project. Can't say anything to me because I'm already famous.
Yeah.
Or like I'm already doing well. So like, whereas like, if I do want to start off with some of my darker stuff, like they are watching, and I have held back a lot because it's something that I feel nervous to do.
Yeah.
So even in the preparation for this podcast, I did kind of think I did kind of want it to lean more in the dating relationship sphere. Do you know the podcast Call Her Daddy?
I don't think I've heard it. I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's like, it's very American, very big. And it's this woman, Alex Cooper, this woman, Alex Cooper. And she just talks the way that women talk, the way that like normal millennial women talk. I'm actually not even sure if she's a millennial. She might be Gen Z, but she says it very very crass. Candidly. Yeah, candidly, and not in a way that I think either of us would find offensive at all. Like I find it very funny, but like one of her earlier episodes, like her and her friend are like referring to this blowjob technique called like, I think it was called like the Gluck 3000 or something. And like, yeah, like, so I'm listening to that. I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. And I did kind of want it to veer in like, maybe not that, but, or maybe, I don't know, like I was kind of trying to see if I could go in that direction. And in my first episode, like that is the most revealing episode that I have. And I actually just like straight up just didn't tell my parents that I was doing this. But I was on the phone with my dad earlier and he's like, oh, I just watched like your latest episode. And I was like, okay, so you're watching it, which is great.
Yeah.
Because I have their support, which is like amazing. And I'm so thankful for that. But that also does mean I'm very aware that everything that I do on this podcast is going to be watched by them. So because of that, I do feel a little caged in my comedy, because my comedy does match more of like the brash, like kind of in your face, like when, it's me and my friends, just like, shooting the shit, just bantering, whatever. Like, yeah, I can get really aggressive, but I don't feel the freedom to do that.
Yeah.
Yet.
Yeah.
Yet. I feel like it's one of those things, like if I hit a certain point,
then you can.
Yeah. Then I'll be like, yeah, what are you going to say?
Yeah.
I'm famous.
Yeah. But this is the thing, right? Is like I first of all, I totally get that mentality. But I also think like ultimately this is to do with like you finding your groove, you know?
Yeah.
And like if right now you're not comfortable with that, it's okay that you're not comfortable with it. It doesn't matter if like right now you don't explore that, because in 10, 15 podcasts time, you might be talking about that stuff.
Yeah.
And you feel more kind of empowered and a little bit more like you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I totally hear you. Like when I was at Fuck It Up, I remember saying to I think it was Kima that I was talking to about it. And I said, there's always that concern that a clip will come out about me doing my more explicit material and someone in the family will see it. And she said, like, that's your turning point.
Yeah.
Basically what she said was, that's your turning point. Either you do this and they see the content and you take the fallout, or this is your glass ceiling. This is where you stay. You won't make it any further than this.
Yeah.
And and I guess for me it was kind of like, I think it's one thing if I am just going on stage and being shocking and gross for no reason.
Yeah.
But it sounds so pretentious, but in a way my viewpoint is like, okay, you're shocked.
Mm-hmm.
But why are you shocked?
Yeah.
Why are you shocked?
Yeah.
Would it be different if I wasn't brown? Would it be different if I wasn't Muslim?
Mm-hmm.
Would you be as shocked?
Mm-hmm.
And if any of those answers to those questions are no, then there's something to do with your expectations of me when you have no attachment to me or no knowledge of me, but you've already made those assumptions about what you think I ought to or ought not to be doing.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting because so for example, when I first was doing a lot of this like quite explicit content, what I was finding was that black audiences really didn't like it. Really didn't like it. But younger black audiences did. Right? Particularly young women.
Yeah.
Really liked it.
Yeah.
Right? So typically as well, if there were an African crowd, no. Absolutely not. No. And then even with kind of Caribbean crowds, if they were there with their families, it's a no.
Yeah.
It's a no. But it was weird. It was like they'd be sat around with like 4 of their children around them, acting like they're virgins, acting like they don't know what a dick looks like. that really strange kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember really struggling with that at the beginning because I was kind of like, why don't... Like, I went to a school that was, like, predominantly black. I've always gotten with black girls, in particular, really, really well.
Yeah.
Why don't they like me?
Yeah.
And then... But it's, like, so much of it is about the minor tweaks that I've made in the way that I approach comedy now is that it's not just about me kind of doing the joke and hoping that they like it. It's more about, like, you should like this joke because it's funny.
Yeah.
And it's different now. It's different. Playing in front of those same crowds is different. In fact, even if you have like Muslim women like hijabis in the crowd, you'll find that they'll laugh. I mean, they'll do that, but they'll be laughing, and that's great.
Yeah.
That's fucking great. Because do you know what? Even if I'm not saying that you have to subscribe to my way of being brown, female, Muslim, but I still think it's great to be able to say, I can still find that funny, even if I don't do that myself, or I choose not to do that. Because I don't want to, and I don't like to, whatever it is. It's such a great unifying thing to be able to have like what seems like disparate groups of people in an audience all laughing at the same thing.
Yeah.
And instead, you know, instead of having somebody go, I feel like I can't laugh at that because God will strike me down for having a sense of humour. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. And like, so have you, because obviously you want to stick to the message that you're trying to say and do. So how did you tweak your stand-up such that you stay true to yourself, stay true to the message that you want to get out there, but that you got people to like come on board, really?
Yeah.
Right? Like to just be like, oh, right, I can laugh at that joke.
Yeah.
It is just a funny joke.
Yeah. I think calling it out in the audience. There was a gig that I did before, and there was a woman who had her feet up on a chair and was asleep, and seriously, like old. She was, you know, sort of in her 80s, I would have thought.
Yeah.
And I just kept talking to her throughout the whole show. Like I'd make like a really dirty joke and then I'd talk to her about it and get her feedback, you know.
Yeah.
And that was, I think that was like a really nice unifier as well. There's obviously some confidence in that too.
Yeah.
But calling it out helps. Talking to people who are clearly not enjoying it helps.
That's really funny. That's hysterical.
But then also, you know, there is just a on the confidence thing, that thing of just going absolute confidence of going, this joke is funny and I know it works.
Yeah.
And if they don't laugh, moving on isn't the way to do this. You need to dig in. And I think previously it would be a thing of like, you do the joke, hope that they laugh, and then if they don't, you go, oh fuck, okay, and then I'll just try something else, and you just move on. And that's not the thing to do, because also like the fear of a comedian, it's like blood in the ocean for a shark.
Yeah.
Like the audience is sense it. If you are not confident, if you're afraid, if there's any sense of doubt, they will know.
Yeah.
So you absolutely cannot let on that your confidence is knocked or anything like that. And in all honesty, I do feel genuinely a lot more confident as an act. And most people do. The longer they do anything, you know, the longer you do this podcast, you know, like in 100 podcasts from now, you'll be like, fuck it, like, let's just go. Do you know what I mean? You'll start with like 7 minutes and you're done.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So with all things that you carry on at, you know, you do just get more confident and better at it. And I think that's all it is, you know, I've had enough time and experience with predominantly Black crowds to kind of understand them. But also a comedian friend of mine gave me a massive lowdown on it, and she's doing really well now. She's doing incredibly well. But she did a lot of Black gigs when she was coming up. Mm-hmm. She's a Black woman herself. Mm. And so she was kind of giving me a lowdown of like the whole thing of her saying that you would have people surrounded by their children and they'll still look at you like they don't know what you're talking about when you're talking about sex. And I was like, that's nuts.
It's crazy.
That's nuts. But that's the thing. So you just, you know, cool. You just have to go with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Stand up seems so terrifying to me. Like, that is insane. Wow. But that's what it is, right? Like that's what stand up is like, it's learning how crowds are going to react to what you're saying. Because I would do what you said not to do. I would tell the joke and then I'd be like, laugh, please. And then if they didn't laugh, I'd be like, okay. And that's why I don't do stand up. I do want to try it once in my life, but
you should. It's really good fun.
I think so. Yeah. Right? Like just to, I don't know, say that I did it. And I also feel like a lot of it is transferable, right? Like any stand up skills that I'll learn, I could transfer that to improv.
Yeah.
Transfer that to this, like whatever. How is your stand-up different now from when you were in your 20s?
I think it's different because my approach to it is different.
You mentioned before that when you started comedy, you were in it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
because the thing is, I spent most of my formative years being extremely ugly, right? Just
are you ugly duckling?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, up until the age of like 18, I was like 70% eyebrow. Do you know what I mean?
No, but we have the best personalities. That's why we're funny.
Yeah.
We're funny and we're pretty. If you're single, get you an ugly duckling. Because we are funny, a little insecure.
Yeah.
But we are a good time.
Yes. And we're great in bed because we're grateful for anything.
We're the trifecta.
Yeah.
It's everything you could want in a partner. Oh my God.
But that was it though.
Yeah.
I think those early days of comedy, I had come into my own physically, and I was I suppose getting used to being certainly a more attractive version of myself than I was. And I think a lot of it was to do with approval and approval and adoration and admiration and all that sort of stuff. You know, and if you're in it for that, like there is a shelf life on that, and it's wafer thin. It's wafer thin. All it will take is for a string of really bad gigs for you to go, forget it then, because once your confidence is knocked, and you know, if you've contained your self-worth in a stand-up set, that of course it's a house of cards. Do you know what I mean? It's an extremely delicate house of cards. And the thing is, for me, it was never even that I got to the stage where the house of cards fell. I knew the house of cards was failing, so I walked away from it.
Okay.
But then the second time round that I started getting into comedy, it was I love the craft. I love comedy. I love jokes. I love writing jokes. I love figuring out how I can make something better. Oh, does that work? And so now when I go on stage, there's always that thing of like, it's just analytical. Oh, why didn't that do well that time? It did well before. Was it the crowd? Was it the night? Was it my delivery? Did I changed that word? That one word made all the difference. The intonation of how that. There's this one joke that I do, and I'm still figuring it out, and I've been trying it for a year, and I love it. And I've seen it work a couple of times. But the thing is that the way that I do my comedy as well, almost every single time that I do it, it's slightly different. Yeah. So there are lots of people that have like practically the same. They rehearse it and memorize it like a script. I don't really have that. Okay. So, which isn't handy when you have jokes that where it's very specifically predicated on the very specific beat, tone, and order of your words.
So yeah, you know, we talked a lot about comedy and stand-up, so I think it'd be nice to kind of stay in that realm. So if you could give yourself your in your 20s, let's say your late 20s, is that when you went back into stand-up?
Probably early 30s.
Oh, okay. So when did you start stand-up?
In my early 20s.
Oh, in your early 20s.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
If you could give comedy / stand-up advice to your early 20s self, what would it be?
It would be to not wrap your identity up in this. I think a lot of stand-ups still struggle with that, actually. I think the older you get, the better you get at being able to understand that it is just a craft, or it is just a job.
Yeah.
But when you're young and you know, we're comedians, of course we're insecure. Do you know what I mean? When you're young, I think it feels important in an unhealthy way. I think it's fine to have pride in your output and what you're doing on stage, but I think, you know, if something doesn't work, or, you know, doesn't work out, that it can feel quite crushing, I think. And I think had I given myself that advice back then, I probably would have continued on with stand-up then, instead of having that kind of almost, it was the best part of like 10 years out of the game, really.
Yeah.
And that was, a lot of that was fear. A lot of that was just, you know, well, if I write, that's less immediate rejection. Do you know what I mean? You can write a script off and send it off, and then months later you'll get an email back saying, oh, it wasn't good enough. So, you know, it's a bit annoying, but fine. It's not the same thing as being on stage and having a room full of people reject you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's probably the advice I would give is understand that, like, you are not stand-up. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really good. Yeah, that's really good. Because like I said, I'm new to comedy.
Yeah.
So I started comedy in my 30s, you know? So like I already had levels of confidence that I didn't have in my 20s.
Yeah.
So coming into it at this age, and really I've really dove in the last like couple of years. I can tell the difference between the way that I take rejection versus someone that has been in comedy for a little bit longer, because they tie themselves to the laughter. They need people to like them. Obviously I need it too, and I want it too in a certain way, but I can almost like put space between that feeling. I can be like, oh, okay, it's not anything about me. Maybe that joke sucked, or maybe I had an off day, but like I'm still whole. I'm still me. But I see it in people who've been doing comedy in their since their 20s, or people who are still in their early 30s. Like if one person doesn't like them, like it ruins the entire show for them. Like have you ever had a show where everyone is laughing except one person, and you're just like, why? Why don't you find me funny? And we'll leave the same exact improv show, and I'll be like, oh my God, that went well. 90% of the people were laughing. And then someone else will be like, no, there was 3 people in the back not laughing. Like that show was awful. And yeah, I think it really is just like confidence. Yeah. Which is my favorite part about my 30s.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Like I wouldn't trade being in my 30s for my 20s for anything.
Preach.
For anything.
Preach.
Like the only thing that was better in my 20s than in my 30s are my tits. Do you know what I mean?
You know what? I'm in the itty bitty titty committee, so
I really.
So I'm actually happy with the growth of my boobs, because when I was in my 20s, I was like, oh, so this is it. This is all I'm getting. But I know what you mean, because gravity comes for us all.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Except for the itty bitty titty committee, it has not. It doesn't come for us. But
no. In the end, you guys win.
You know what? I did spend a lot of my teens and early 20s being like, damn, those big boob bitches.
Yeah.
But now it's worth it in the end.
Yeah, you look, I'm the one walking around like a metronome, not you. An upside down metronome.
Oh my God. This was so much fun.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun too.
Thank you so much. We're going to have to do this again once I have more than 100 followers.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be really fun.
Yeah. Well, I have you. Do you want to plug anything?
Yes, I have my show called Keep It Dark. I'm doing a bunch of shows around the country. At the moment, I have my show at the Women in Comedy Festival on I think it's the 11th of October, and that's in Manchester. But then I also have a show in November, which I can't remember. But that's in London.
Okay.
That's in London. Awesome. So it'd be great to see people there.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. I'm there.
But yeah, it's kind of more of the same of what I've spoken about today. Like it's quite blue and it's quite dark and it's quite naughty. But hopefully quite a lot of relatable stuff that certainly people of colour will be able to relate to. But yeah, I think it's also illuminating for a lot of, like at Edinburgh, when I did the show, a lot of white people said, oh, there was a lot of stuff there that I wasn't really kind of aware of and conscious of and stuff like that. It makes it sound like a lecture, and it is fun. It is funny. Yeah. Please come and see.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much. I will absolutely be there. Yes. And yeah.
Cool.
That's it.
Thank you
so much.
Yes, you're very welcome.